This October, 2 horror games were released, and I was interested in both of them and decided to do a little bit of a double feature. The first one is going to go real quick, and that's Remothered, Broken Porcelain. The second one is Amnesia, Rebirth, and that one I actually played all the way through. Remothered, Broken Porcelain was a mess on launch. I tried to play it, and the game had no business. The strange thing is they actually pushed up the release date. I'm not really certain why they moved the release date forward. It frankly just doesn't work. What is happening? Which is a shame because I was really looking forward to a good scare, and instead I ended up just with a weird frustration for as long as I could handle playing it. It starts weird, where you're just kind of plopped into a scene and then immediately killed, and then you kind of restart with a different character, but things are just kind of like changing. It feels like half of animations, like half of cutscenes are missing. Is it supernatural? It's really hard to tell. And one of the biggest problems with the game is a lot of times I can't tell if the problems are bugs or because they're supposed to be that way. So I don't know if I'm screwing up or something's broken. And it makes it hard to move forward. Remothered, Broken Porcelain, the review for that is going to go very fast. I'm giving it a 5. And I think I'm being generous because I think that there's a game in there that after patches in like a year, it might actually be good. It might be a playable good game, or at least a playable passable game. Right now, I'm going to give it a 5 based on optimism almost completely. If I was basing it completely off just what I played, we're talking like a 2. Like it was unplayable. I had to restart like 3 or 4 times when like items would go missing out of my inventory. I didn't get that far into the game, which is an obvious bad sign. I almost didn't feel comfortable reviewing it, but I was like, no, I went into this wanting to have a good time, and it just wasn't there for me. So that's Remothered, Broken Porcelain. Let's move on to Amnesia Rebirth. Now, Amnesia Rebirth was the opposite. That game scared me. I was screaming. One of the things that I do in video games is I panic and run. And Amnesia does not want you to do that. In fact, there's this one part where I just like plummeted down a pit trap that they put there, which a pit trap is going to get me almost every single time because I have flight, okay? That's me. I got scared and I ran for it. And there was a bunch of times where I had to really like hold off. There's this part where you're kind of going through, it's like a maze that's changing, and I got myself lost completely several times, which ended up with me being attacked. And that happened because I would just start running out of fear. Just like, gotta go, gotta go. That's effective. It's doing its job. They do a lot to kind of ease you into the horror. You start out kind of like moving towards this evil, and you can feel it coming. But the reveal for the real scares comes very slowly. And so you have a lot of time to kind of build up fear. One thing that they do very well is they hit you in the face with these visuals when your character should be scared. Oh my God. And that breaks that barrier between you and the character. She's climbing through, a dark cave, kind of clambering through, trying to get through. And they have this device where like the ends of your vision start to creep in with these tendrils, and you start, it builds up anxiety in you. And then it'll hit you in the face with a disturbing visual, this mask, or like, kind of it's almost like a blood splatter, but it's kind of this viney growth, like flash in your face, right? And when it hits you with that, it freaks you out and it boosts your anxiety, gets your heart going. Because you don't know when those hits are going to happen, you're like trying to turn a corner and it's getting dark and you're looking for a torch, and then they hit you with the thing in the face and it freaks you out. I scream at the top of my lungs. That's how it goes. And all that helps to build this very scary world.
Hooray.
Jesus! Just stare at the floor! There are some great puzzle breaks that like let you calm down, and it's like, okay, how do I solve this puzzle? They're probably not going to scare me right now. This is great. I can kind of like get into this world. They tell the story to you both with inner monologue some kind of flashback memories and kind of notes that you pick up around, and they kind of give you clues as to like what happened, what all went wrong. It did help me get invested in the character. It did help me get invested in her companions. You know, you get a little bit about each person, and that helps you feel like they're real and, you know, lets you feel bad when you find their body later on, right? The driving force is your survival, but she's surviving for that child that she's carrying. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler to say that the game kind of centers around the main character escaping and trying to survive because she's pregnant.
It's good to know I'm not alone.
And that pregnancy has implications on the story, and it also helps with the mechanics. It's hard to move stuff. You know, she's a pregnant woman, and some of the stuff is just too heavy. She can't really jump. She's not as mobile and as agile, and maybe that would be frustrating in a game when you're playing as a regular guy, but when you're playing as this pregnant woman, you play it off like, well, yeah, she can't move this stuff. It's too heavy. She can't get up there. It makes it feel more real. It also makes you feel helpless, and that's nice because it adds to that fear. The puzzles are not overly complicated, but enough that you do have to think a little bit about them, and that's nice. The mechanics for moving and interacting with this puzzle can be kind of clunky. Like to turn a wheel, you gotta like spin the mouse in this weird way, and so, you know, it just kind of felt like a waste. I understand it's like to build an anxiety because there are some times where you gotta spin this stuff and you got a ticking clock, you know, there's something coming after you or what have you, or you're trapped underwater, and so you gotta spin, and that adds anxiety, right? Oh, I gotta get this right. But most of the time it just came off clunky. The puzzles were, most of all, a great way for me to take a break from being freaked out of my mind. There are multiple endings at the end, and although I didn't feel like my gameplay influenced what choices I was able to make, I think those options are always available to you. I'm not sure. I didn't want to look anything up about this game, so I'm actually not sure what actually happens if you do things differently. I didn't feel like I had a lot of choices along the way, so I don't know how much it's an illusion of choice with just 3 endings at the end, or if there are more choices that I missed along the way, because I didn't know that I was making them. And that brings me to how I feel about this game in general, and I want to juxtaposition it with Remothered Broken Porcelain in this way, is that both of these games are indie games that are very high concept, or at least are going for really good scares, and they're both kind of stealth, hiding, and like, you know, dealing with psychological trauma, basically. And Remothered puts you in a situation where, although you feel anxiety and you feel fear, all of the scares and all of the difficulty in that game come from the mechanics and how bad they are, right? Like, I can't get away from her not because she's particularly scary. I can't get away from her because it's hard to move in this world. Whereas Amnesia, every time I got caught or every time I made a mistake, it was my fault. I know for sure that I should have done something different. The mechanics are sound in Amnesia, and I feel like that goes a long way. I don't want the game getting in between me and the scare. You know, the Broken Porcelain, like, my reactions during that versus my reactions during Amnesia Rebirth, like, it's night and day. Or, like, you know, frustration and, like, horror.
Oh! Run away! Turn off the light! The light match! Oh my god.
It was very, very, very good at scaring me. If you're a fan of horror games, leave a comment below. Like and subscribe to the channel. You can also find me on YouTube. It's Robot vs. Dinosaur. And thanks a lot for your support. You can also follow me on Twitch. It's twitch.tv/Robot vs. Dinosaur. I'm on Instagram at Robot vs. Dinosaur.